Okay, well, what else? Huh? The papers say Bianca Castiafiore is engaged to Captain Haddock. What does Captain Haddock say?
Blistering blue barnacles, Bashi bazooks.
Yeah, I walked right into that one, yeah.
This month's top headline, Reichstag dissolved by presidential decree.
The government of the Burger Bloc scoffs at democracy, scoffs at the will of the young Reichstag, and scoffs at the boundless suffering of the working people of Germany.
The Reichstag has fallen. Long live the Reichstag. The people decide. On to the electoral struggle against the Burger Bloc.
The Social Democrats have proven one cannot govern against them. But at what price? At what price? The Republic has seen 4 parliaments. None of them have met the natural end. Each has been dissolved.
Center-party dictatorship over the German nation. Brüning governs with unconstitutional powers granted by Hindenburg. The cowardly Reichstag does not dare to dissolve itself. We demand a referendum.
I'm Indy Neidell.
I'm Spartacus Olsson.
And this is The Rise of Hitler. Welcome to the Weimar Wire, covering all of July's jealous, judicious, juvenile, and juicy general jive.
Before we hit July, here's a quick recap of June.
Yep.
It began with Chancellor Brüning's government struggling to gain support for their austerity measures, leading to the resignation of his finance minister.
The Rhineland celebrated the withdrawal of French troops, though both the Nazis and the communists denounced this as a sham liberation.
In Saxony, shock elections saw the Nazis and communists gain ground, leaving the state government paralyzed.
And across Germany, a wave of bans on Nazi uniforms provoked protests, arrests, and harsh penalties, but also fueled the Nazi narrative of persecution. Okay, now that we've covered that, the Reichstag is dissolved. What the hell?
As always, we need to mention this month's other headlines before we get there. The news,
The rumble,
the lowdown,
the scoop.
So, in international news, Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, dies on the 7th.
France pledges to suspend the construction of warships for 6 months pending a naval agreement with Italy.
The first Football World Cup begins on July 13th in Uruguay, and Uruguay is crowned the world champions yesterday, the 30th, winning the final 4-2 against Argentina.
In baseball news, the Philadelphia Athletics execute 2 triple steals in one game for the first time in Major League history. And I'll tell you what, okay? I bet even nearly 100 years from now, no one else has done that again.
You think?
I think so. And now, on to Where's Hitler? What's Adolf up to this month?
This month, Adolf Hitler, leader of the Nazi Party, makes appearances in Thuringia and Bavaria.
At the beginning of the month, he gives a 3-hour speech to university students with a direct appeal.
A fight for freedom that does not seize the youth of the universities is not a fight for freedom. Up until now, academic youth has been estranged from the people, and as they aged, never found their way back, leaving leadership to the Jews. We aim to reunite the head and the fist within our national body.
His speeches also increasingly hint at a looming crisis.
Just a few months, we may meet again, and then you will decide who was right, the others or us. Decide now!
Hitler continues to paint the old political parties as mired in the petty politics of despair.
The more the old parties are forced to exhaust themselves in the lows of their pathetic and hopeless day-to-day politics, the more National Socialism rises to embody grand objectives.
He also speaks to the SS against government suppression. The SS is one of the 2 Nazi paramilitary groups, this one loyal specifically to Hitler.
Don't let the current repressions discourage you. The day of internal liberation is not far off. Then we will repay these gentlemen for what they have done to our movement.
Current repressions partly refers to that prohibition of Nazi uniforms, but also to new initiatives against the Nazis this month.
Prussia again increases pressure on the Nazi Party like last month. This begins with a leaked secret memorandum by the Prussian Minister of the Interior, or so the Nazis claim.
Strictly confidential to all Prussian authorities, the Prussian Minister of the Interior. In order to obtain an overview of cases where National Socialists have physically harmed dissidents, I respectfully request a report by July 15th of this year. Please ensure this report is kept up to date with any new cases. Signed, Dr. Vantig. The Nazis immediately issue an official response.
Fully public. To all National Socialists, the Supreme SA leader. In order to obtain an overview of cases where National Socialists were physically attacked by dissidents or by official bodies led by Jews or Marxists, I request a comprehensive report by July 15th of this year. Please ensure this report is kept up to date with any new cases. Signed, V. Pfeffer.
We here at the Weimar Wire cannot authenticate the leaked Prussian memorandum. It may be a ploy by the Nazis. However, if this month's other developments in Prussia are any indication, such a memorandum is not out of character.
On July 3rd, the official Prussian press service delivers a declaration.
Given the direction taken by the Nazi Party and the Communist Party of Germany, both parties are now considered organizations aiming for the violent overthrow of the current government. Any civil servant who participates in, supports, or is otherwise active on behalf of these groups violates the duty of loyalty to the state required by their position. Therefore, all civil servants are strictly prohibited from joining, acting for, or otherwise supporting these organizations.
But it's not just in Prussia.
The Baden Minister of Education, Remmele, has now issued a decree prohibiting all civil servants in his department from any form of active participation in the National Socialist Workers' Party.
So, in short, there will be no more Nazi teachers in Baden.
Right.
Of course, the reactions to this new state-level policy vary quite a bit. The communists say
that these provisions should apply to the members of the NSDAP is a sham maneuver to feign a fight against the fascists so as to be able to proceed more brutally against the revolutionary officials. In this way, the Prussian government robs the right guaranteed by the Reich Constitution. The Nazis threaten the lawmakers responsible.
the intense summer heat seems to be having quite an adverse effect on the authorities, resulting in a certain tropical madness. You would do better to conduct yourselves in a way that ensures you come through unscathed when the lawful seizure of power happens later down the road.
And they're also not surprised by the policy's warm reception in some quarters.
The new decree from the Prussian State Ministry is, of course, welcomed by the Berlin Jewish press.
What they mean by Berlin Jewish press is the liberal press, newspapers like Vossische Zeitung, which states,
"The fight against these destructive elements is a civic duty. The idea of national community and peaceful resurgence must be opposed to the hate-filled sermons and sense of catastrophe. One can only hope that the vast majority of civil servants in the state and municipalities recognize the necessity."
A sentiment that is also broadly echoed by the Germania, the official Center Party newspaper, basically the Catholic conservatives. Likewise, the unofficial newspaper of the DDP, the German Democratic Party, asks what no such prohibition might entail.
Imagine, Indy. Imagine.
Imagine it. Yeah, okay. Okay, got it.
During the day, a bureaucrat in Prussia is a servant of the state, sworn to uphold it and the Constitution by oath. Then, on the evening of the same day, he changes into his Nazi Party uniform and loudly demands the violent overthrow of the government.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. But overall, it is really weird, actually, isn't it?
It is.
It's a strange law. But overall, it seems like the democratic and liberal forces in the Reich support the initiatives. There are, of course, also doubters and detractors besides the accused. The biggest one is the DNVP, the German National People's Party, the traditional far-right party of Germany.
As regular listeners will know, the DNVP and the Nazis have lately been converging. DNVP leader Alfred Hugenberg also happens to be a media magnate who owns one of the largest newspaper publishing companies in Germany. Two papers under his umbrella now criticize the new policy.
See, they wonder how any state government can prohibit membership or affiliation with political parties that the federal government has not prohibited. This clearly goes, or so they say, against Article 130 of the Constitution, which guarantees freedom of political affiliation for bureaucrats.
They also want to clarify something, as the Deutsche Zeitung writes.
All fair-minded citizens should reject the decree's implied equivalence of National Socialists with communists. Until now, no one has been able to prove that the NSDAP pursues goals that contravene state laws.
This is a statement that technically is not true, at least as of July 11th. On that day, the German Supreme Court in Leipzig proclaims,
In the constitutional legal dispute of the German Reich, plaintiff, against the state of Thuringia, defendant, the state court for the German Reich has decided that the school prayers published by Thuringian Ministry of Education are not compatible with the Reich Constitution, Article 148, Paragraph 2.
Article 148 says this: in public school instructions, care must be taken not to offend the sensitivities of those with differing views.
How does this implicate the Nazis? Well, a while back, we reported about some school prayers that the local Nazi Minister of Education in the Interior instated in Thuringian schools, and how, in response, the Federal Minister of the Interior opened legal proceedings against them because of their contents. Here, in rough terms, is how the judges justify their ruling.
The ruling does not seek to ban all school prayers, but opposes only those that misuse religious form for partisan aims, like targeting Jews and social democrats with accusation of deceit and calls for actions against them. Minister Frick's past statements confirm this interpretation, leaving no room for alternative views.
Hitler also doesn't leave room for alternative views within the Nazi Party. Otto Strasser is, or was, a prominent member of the NSDAP, especially its northern bloc. Together with his brother Gregor and with Joseph Goebbels, Nazi MP, Otto built up the left wing of the NSDAP, primarily in Hamburg and Berlin. Of the three men, though, he is the least powerful.
What sets Otto and his brother apart from Hitler's views is their belief in a way between capitalism and Marxism. According to them, both are equally deplorable, and one big issue Otto has with Hitler is that while he fights Marxists and Bolsheviks, he does nothing against the capitalists.
Well, worse than that, as Otto sees it, Hitler even cozies up to the leading circles of the business and capitalist class. With this, he means coalition governments the Nazis have joined in Thuringia and Saxony, working together with bourgeois parties like the DVP and the DNVP.
A letter from Hitler to the Gauleiter of Berlin, the regional Nazi leader, on June 30th pushes Otto over the edge. In it, Hitler demanded a ruthless purge of all salon Bolsheviks within the party. In other words, of Otto Strasser and like-minded Nazis. This leads Strasser to leave the Nazi party and release a proclamation on July 4th.
With deep concern, we've been observing the development of the NSDAP for months, noticing how the party increasingly and on ever more important issues has acted against the very idea of National Socialism. Hand in hand with the gentrification of the movement came an elitism and corruption within the party, which took on truly alarming proportions. For us, the rejection of capitalism and imperialism was and remains a fundamental requirement. The rejection of any form of compromise or coalition politics was and remains firmly established for us.
And he goes one step further. He founds a renegade Nazi party, the Opposition Combat League of Revolutionary National Socialists.
That is a mouthful.
Yes, it is indeed. But there's another shorter name, the Black Front.
The Black Front.
It does not, however, look like this new left-wing fringe group of the far right will have much success.
Left-wing fringe group of the far right. That is something I thought I'd never hear.
Well, here we are.
Here we are. In response, on the same day as Strasser's declaration, Hitler gives an order to all Nazi Party members.
From now on, the publications of Strasser's publishing company are to be regarded as hostile outlets and treated accordingly.
Otto's brother Gregor, more popular within the Nazi Party, chooses to remain in the party and expand his power base.
Well, it remains to be seen how this will develop, and we here at the Weimar Wire will keep you posted.
Otto and his brother were also members of the Freikorps, the paramilitary organizations from the turbulent times after the fall of the Kaiser and the defeat in the Great War. This month, the Reichstag could very much affect the legacy of those times and the future of many former Freikorps members.
On July 2nd, there is a vote on the draft of a law to amend the law on immunity from prosecution of July 14th, 1928.
Okay, for this to make sense, we need to go back in time a little to the start of the Weimar state. German democracy, established in November 1918, soon faced threats to its survival from uprisings across Germany.
With the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 limiting the army to 100,000 men, the government was unable to suppress much of its unrest. In response, it created or enlisted existing Freikorps to maintain order.
These groups quickly enacted vigilante justice. Major figures were even assassinated, like Matthias Erzberger, who negotiated Germany's 1918 surrender, and Walter Rathenau, former foreign minister. Communist leaders like Rosa Luxemburg were also killed, further increasing tensions.
And for traitors within their ranks, those who revealed too much about their internal workings, the Freikorps held mock trials, leading to quite a few executions. These trials were called Feme, an old German medieval term to describe special courts.
New members of the Freikorps were told, "Traitors await the Feme." As one former member of the Black Reichswehr, one of the largest Freikorps, detailed in 1925,
Without trial, the victim is punished. Those suspected are already sentenced.
between 1919 and 1924, 354 people were thus murdered. And during all that, the government was in a tricky spot. If it was too hard on the Freikorps, they could turn against the government. If they were too hard on popular socialist agitators or revolutionaries, it could likewise make the situation worse rather than better.
In 1918, those who participated in German Revolution were absolved of their crimes. That's tens of thousands.
In 1920, many thousands who participated in the Cat Push were pardoned.
In 1921, communist putschists were also acquitted, and 2,629 people were declared innocent of treason.
In 1925, President Hindenburg, with the support of all parties in parliament, granted amnesty to roughly 29,000 people. This included Freikorps members, police officers who had abused their positions, soldiers, sailors, many others.
Supposedly, in the name of peace, the transgressions of the violent first years of this new Germany were to be forgotten in the spirit of people did what they had to do.
Yet so far, those who committed actual murders have not been granted amnesty. That is something that might be about to change. This vote on July 2nd is about that, expanding the amnesty to those who murdered to protect the German fatherland. Freikorps members, communists, police officers, soldiers, naval officers, whoever. Only the murder of government ministers is excluded from this.
To make this change, a supermajority in the Reichstag is needed, something that seems very unlikely. Communists voting with Nazis, or the SPD voting with communists? However, the law passes the Reichstag 291 to 135.
Really?
Yep. The current government parties, as well as the communists and the Nazis, support the law, while the Social Democrats make up the majority of the opposition. Many are very surprised. As reported by Vorwärts, the Welt am Montag writes, why did the communists vote for the Feme murderers? The communists, who had railed against the release of the assassins until the very last moment, ended up providing the necessary two-thirds majority.
This question is valid, especially because only 4 communists personally benefit from the revised amnesty. The explanation, though, is pretty straightforward. Some of the leaders of the Communist Party, including party chairman Ernst Thälmann, currently face charges of treason and incitement to insurrection. The rumor is these charges are to be suspended until the next elections if the communists support the proposed changes.
Justice Minister Dr. Brett describes it as the definitive break that should put an end to all political offenses and crimes of the immediate post-war period. For a moment, it looks like convicted murderers may soon roam the streets of Weimar. But then, the second chamber of the Reichsrat, made up of the ministers of Germany's federal states, sabotages things.
Headed by the social democratic stronghold of Prussia, the assembly employs its veto power. While the Reichstag can overturn this veto by another supermajority vote, that vote fails on the 16th. So for now, there is no amnesty for the Feme murderers. But supporters of the amnesty are already preparing to try again.
One problem there. To enact a new law, you need a parliament to begin with. As many of you know, the national German budget has been a contentious issue all year. It even brought down Chancellor Müller's government in March.
It has also caused a few near misses to the current Brüning government. We've talked at length about the proposed changes, increases in taxes, a one-time economic crisis contribution by the wealthy, and cuts to welfare programs.
On July 12th, the revised plans are rejected yet again by the tax committee. In response, the government decides to bring it in front of the Reichstag. Hopes are not very high that a democratic consensus can be reached, as the Vossische Zeitung writes.
Just hours before the second reading of the funding proposal, which is listed as the second item on today's Reichstag agenda, there appears to be no realistic chance of the bill passing through Parliament.
They're right. On the 16th, by a vote of 256 to 193, Parliament rejects the new funding proposal. The SPD, the Communists, the Nazis, and the German National People's Party all refuse to accept it.
This prompts Chancellor Brüning to get up in Parliament, flushed and visibly enraged. But for a solid moment, he can't get a word out because the communists keep shouting, "Resign, resign, resign," for like a whole minute, really. But once he can finally speak, he says exactly one sentence.
On behalf of the government, I must state that it no longer sees any value in continuing the deliberations.
That evening, Brüning and his cabinet do what President Hindenburg has given them the authority to do. They invoke Article 48 of the Constitution to enact the new policies by presidential decree over the parliamentary vote.
And now comes the question. Will the Reichstag make use of paragraph 3 of Article 48 and overturn the presidential decree with a simple majority vote? President Hindenburg, though, has given Brüning clear instructions what is to be done in that case. Brüning is supposed to dissolve the Reichstag.
The next day, the Social Democrats submit the following motion to Parliament to be voted on the 18th. The Reichstag demands the repeal of the Reich President's decree issued on July 16th, 1930.
So, on July 18th at 1 p.m., the representatives of the German people make their choice, with not a single abstention, voting 236 to 222. The Reichstag accepts the Social Democrats' motion, reversing the presidential decree. The vote is closer than expected.
But that's because of the internal split of the DNVP, the German National People's Party, which now becomes permanent.
This once prominent and influential party has been losing popularity since 1928 and has been struggling internally about the way forward.
The fact that they are an opposition party while occupying a ministerial position illustrates this perfectly. The 25 DNVP MPs who vote with the government and against the rest of their party renounce their party membership. But right after the vote, Chancellor Brüning once more stands in front of the assembled parliament and reads this declaration.
Dr. Brüning, Chancellor of the Reich, ladies and gentlemen, I have an ordinance from the Reich President to present to the High House. Since the Reichstag has today decided to demand that my ordinances issued on the basis of Article 48 of the Reich Constitution on July 16th be repealed, I hereby, based on Article 25 of the Reich's Constitution,
End the starvation regime! End the starvation regime!
dissolve the Reichstag.
The deed is done. German democracy has failed or succeeded depending on whom you ask. The Vossische Zeitung writes, the Social Democrats have proven that one cannot govern without them. But at what cost? They forced the dissolution with the help of democracy's mortal enemies, the Communists, the National Socialists, and Hugenberg's followers. The Social Democrats declare,
The hour of reckoning has arrived. The people will have their say. The government's attempts to push through the plans of a minority government against the will of the Reichstag has met resistance from a Reichstag majority. The Social Democratic counterstrike against the constitutional violations of the Brüning cabinet has achieved its first success. The Communists say,
Article 48 was carried out against the will of the people, even partly against the far-right Reichstag. Under the mandate of Hindenburg, supported by the sabers of Reichswehr generals, the carbines of fascist police prefects, the brown hordes of marchers, and deceitful social propaganda of social fascists, the German bourgeoisie transitioned to its most brutal offensive against the working class, aiming to destroy their social living conditions through a new, relentless tax policy based on Article 48. The Nazis have this to say.
So, Hindenburg has granted Mr. Brüning extraordinary powers, but there is significant doubt as to whether they are constitutionally justified. Article 48 can only be invoked in cases of immediate danger. However, the rejection of a financial proposal does not constitute immediate danger. The Chancellor, and by extension the Center Party, makes this announcement.
The call now goes out to the German people to decide their own future. Will the German people deny the right government what is necessary to stabilize finances, sustain the German economy, and uphold social obligations? That is the question of September 14th.
September 14th. Here we have it in black and white. A new election will be held September 14th, 1930. Until then, however, President Hindenburg has the government draft new Article 48 provisions that will enact the budget reform.
Here, at the end of July, Chancellor Brüning has this to say: "The time has come to make one last attempt to save genuine and responsible democracy under the current constitution."
Wow.
Wow is right. And that leads me to the Weimar Wire political indicator brought to you by Time Ghost to gauge this month's trends. As you can imagine, a failed parliament is not good news for those in power, hence the Burger Bloc coalition's downward trend. This also includes the DNVP.
At the same time, those who work against the establishment flourish. Trend up for the Social Democrats, the Communists, and the Nazis.
This ends perhaps the most tumultuous month we have yet covered here at the Weimar Wire. And as always, it leads to many important questions.
What will the new elections bring? Who will come to power?
Which reforms will Brüning pass by presidential decree in the meantime?
Will other states join Baden and Prussia in further combating the Nazis and Communists?
Will Germany be forced to draft a new constitution, as Brüning seems to imply?
Will there ever be another double, triple steal in Major League Baseball?
Well, we'll maybe get some answers when we return at the end of August, though maybe not to that last one. To help us get there, join the Time Ghost Army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. It is the army that makes all of our work possible and keeps the lights on. Until next time, Weimar Wire, signing off. Excelsior!